Jaydev, thank you for taking the time to talk to me and the people from Waterloo that are going to be watching this. I thought I would start just by asking you to tell me about your job at OPG and how your career led you to this position.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as we know that we are refurbishing Darlington nuclear reactors to extend its life of operation for the next 30 years. And during this refurbishment, we use a lot of automated machines. Some of them are manually operated, and some of them are regular tools. And that basically replaces the reactor components. And for the huge project like these, there's a critical path. And if we find ways to improve this critical path, we can save projects days. And 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 if we save the project days, then you can bring that generating unit back online and start producing electricity ahead of its schedule. So our group here, which is known as Refurbishment Innovations, looks after these critical path tooling improvements. And I'm the section manager for this group currently. And that's one aspect of our group. And the second aspect of our group is we're the closest to the technology implementation. So so we provide latest technology and technology implementation support, such as Internet of Things, digitization, 4D schedules, material tracking of the devices that we have, and some of these technologies that are being used company-wide. And for the part of how I came across this is a long story, but like a short version is when I was in university and doing the engineering projects, we used to like design, like for example, I did electrical engineering, so we used to design the circuit and then buy the parts and then build it. So then we came across a term called EPC, right? Like engineering, procure, and construct. And then I wanted to get my head around like how does the world do this at a huge scale? Like because when you when you're a student and doing a project, you may come across a lot of difficulties, and then you can imagine the world is doing that at a bigger scale. So how do they do that? So then so right after graduation, I started as a design engineer. I did a couple of years of that, and then procurement with it as well, and then switched to construction and procurement. And then I realized that EPC also has a big element of client and customer, basically. So then now I'm in OPG, where I'm learning the client side of things on how these EPC contracts and any kind of changes that we can bring into the organization or the power plants can get implemented. And I'm very thankful that OPG recognized my efforts and trusted me to do the leadership role in bringing this change.
Absolutely, and an interesting job that you have now and a path that you've taken to that. So we're going to talk about the digitization of the power facilities, effectively the creation of digital twins of your power generating plants. Can you tell me about what this project did?
Yeah, honestly, in the beginning, during mid 2018 timeframe, we were given a simple task to take a look at the black and white laser scans that we had for certain areas in Darlington power plant, and we had to figure out a way to make them available to people. And now when any task is given to our team here, we look at it from different perspective. For example, like, or like simple as like, are we doing the right thing? Like, is this the latest sustainable and scalable um, thing to do, right? And are we creating like order of magnitude improvement? Are we bringing significant value to the company or not? Do the end user really want it? And is this the thing that we're doing? Is it applicable to everyone in the company? And like, if all of these like perspective and the answers to these questions are yes, then we go about saying uh, like what is the most efficient way to get this thing done, and how can we go beyond the expectation of the end users. So when we were looking at these black and white scans, we were thinking, oh boy, like we have 160 power plants across the province of Ontario and some in United States of America. Um, and if this can be applied to all of them, it can bring huge change. And then like the light bulb went off in our brain, and we're like, we can visit any power plant possibly from our computer. And that actually motivated us to do this thing. And so this project basically implemented a system that provides a secure centralized storage, which is easily accessible by all employees, like via software and a website. So for that, or help from our CIO, we set that up, and we also set up a center of excellence. Like it's a small team of 4 who they go out and collect the scans, and once they collect the scan, they process it and make it available on the server so that employees can access it. And we also implemented a request form where users can, like end users can request any additional services if they want. Like for example, 4D schedules or VR applications, or they want to overlay a 3D point cloud and models on top of each other and see the interferences. And so any specific applications, they can request it. So we also made sure of that gets taken care of. Yeah, so that's what this project implemented.
So with the digital twins, that basically means that anyone within OPG is able to see in detail the inside of all of your power facilities.
Exactly, and right from any computer, as long as they're on OPG network connected, right?
And that allows them to consider any changes that they might wish to make. Like, as I think you mentioned, they can see whether new pipes they might want to put in are going to bump into each other or bump into things which are already there. They can understand, how processes operate. This is really quite a valuable thing.
Yeah, agree.
Okay. So what was the impact of the project? What were the benefits that OPG got from this?
Yeah, so currently there has been about 19 months of runtime with this new system here. And like as I mentioned, like where employees access the virtual data of our power plants. And so far we have about 9 terabytes of data collected of our renewable generation sites and nuclear generating sites. And we're collecting more data daily. And there are about 2,300 plus employees using this system. And they are using daily for different purposes, such as like virtual walkdowns, virtual walk downs can give us appreciation of true size and shape of the equipment, and see the location of it. And the like training is a huge aspect of this. Like when we have a new workforce, anyone who is joining brand new, we can show them, train them, and make them familiar with these generating facilities. The other impact that this technology is making is where we can take measurements within it. So if we were to plan or work ahead of time, we can do that right there and then in the website. We can do virtual, we can do pre-job and post-job virtually. We can also mark up the locations to identify the virtual work instructions. We can so the impacts that you can see is huge, and efficiency gain that we get out of this is humongous. As you can see, like this thing bring all of us together, and it brings us order of magnitude improvement for us, and then it helps us work efficiently, collaboratively with everyone, and it's more streamlined, and the visualization of new project execution strategy, for example, 40 schedules, are making a huge difference and closing the gap of unknowns. It is also saving us traveling cost. Excuse me. For give me 1 second.
Go ahead.
So for it is also saving us huge traveling cost. So for example, if we were to look at some equipment in the plant, we would have to schedule a walk down and then travel to that site, which is remote, for example, and then we have to spend hours traveling and do the walk down. And then when we come back, if let's say if we forgot something, then we would have to go back. But versus now, we just within minutes, like we can see the entire plant and where the project is going to be. So truly, it has changed the way how we work, and so yeah, we're excited about the benefits that this is bringing to us, and it will bring us in the future.
Yeah, when you showed it to me, you showed me that it had the capability of providing information on various elements inside the picture. So there may be a valve, for example, that would be in the online environment or the online picture of the power station, and people could go to that and get the dimensions and the characteristics of that valve. As well as that, there seemed to be information available on work that had been done there in the past, and which would, as you mentioned, mean that people could do all of this remotely rather than having to go and look at what was on the site.
Exactly.
Very interesting. So how was the project managed? What approach did you take to that? And what did you learn from the project management?
Okay, yeah, so the project was managed by our team back in 2018 and 2019, along with the continuous support from our CIO team, Chief Information Office. We had also support from the procedure and governance update team, and of course the end users and affected stakeholders. Right after that light bulb went off in our brain that one day we can have all power plants virtually accessible via a website to every employee. We were super excited for the future and benefits, right? So we gathered many end users across the company, and we did about 6 workshops and we picked our brain and said, okay, if you were to go 10 years in future, and if you had access to the power plant virtually, what do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with that data? And we started collecting those information, and then we did about 12 different vendor show and tell, so that we can understand what is available in the market currently. And so while we're gathering all these details, we realized that this had company-wide applications. And then so that we started drafting a enterprise strategy document that laid out lists of things that we would like to do to transition OPG to have a better digital future. And then we started executing basically that strategy. And then with help from our CIO, we set up the secured and centralized IT infrastructure. And with help from our drawing office, who are the owner of as-built data, such as drawings, we set up a small team within their team to start collecting this 3D data and process it and publish it onto the infrastructure that CIO set up. And in parallel, we modified our governance. Governance is basically like the daily procedures that we use to do the business in day-to-day life. So we modified that to add reminders for users to say, hey, like this 3D and 4D technologies are available, and consider the use of it. And while we're executing this project, we learned many things, such as new technology should be super simple, easy to implement, easy to use, and it should be available to all employees. Like the data has to be truly democratized. We cannot keep data in boundaries. Like it should be available to all employees so that they can use it for their own purpose. And another lesson that we learned was truly listening and understanding problems of the end users, and having passion to solve them is a key. And also having an attitude towards setting the end user for success brings us huge benefits. Also, it is very important to keep in mind that the company has to be ahead of any kind of innovation or change. We should do the change for the so that it keeps on moving the idea further, because there are more end users. And if we like target only one group or do it in a couple of groups, that innovation limits it. So we should do it such a way that it is company-wide. That was one of the lessons we learned. And one of the general things that we learned during this project is that if you're ever overwhelmed with many possible options or outcomes that could happen, then there are ways to overcome it. And what we did was, in our mind, we accepted like the worst case outcome, and then assign that a probability score of occurring. And then on the other hand, we think about good things that can bring to us, and then assign that a probability. So from both of these probabilities scores, we were able to see that good things happening are more like far more certain than the bad things. So so we should continue pursuing that options. So yeah, these were the things that we learned during the project.
Okay, and what challenges did you face in the project? What things caused you to, didn't go the way you expected them to go?
Yeah. One of the challenge that uh, uh, we come across with wrapping our head around how this new technology is going to work from start to finish, right? Such as how would the back end work, how would the front end work, where would the storage going to be, how are we going to collect the data, what format is it going to be in, if we collect it from the field, how do we make it available to people on a computer? And so, and the way to overcome this fear or challenge that we had is to we started ahead of time, like as soon as we were in talks with vendors on what we're going to implement, we started talking to the technical team and started understanding where everything will go. Um, like how would the device collect the data, which format is it going to be in, what softwares we will use to um, process that data, how we're going to publish it onto the server, what specifications we should have the server set to, what ports we should have open for users to connect using the software and web applications. Um, so yeah, getting ahead and starting ahead to learn before implementing helped us overcome that. Another challenge that we had was making sure that the technology that we pick is compatible with other third-party and competitor softwares and file formats or not, right? So basically, like we should give freedom to our vendors to let them use any technology that they want, but at the same time, we should ensure that we are able to import that data into our system, um, so um, so that there's a degree of freedom, and also we can collect data and make it available to people. So that if anyone else to go collect data, we can still use it. So I think so choosing the correct technology for our purpose was a great challenge, and for that as I mentioned earlier, like we did about 12 vendors show and tell to understand what they're offering, and we also did multiple meetings after that with them to understand each of their solutions. Yeah, so again, just making sure that the technology works for your organization is also as important.
Very much so. And you went through a very careful process of technology selection. Some organizations don't do that, and that can create problems for them. It's very important that you mentioned that. Okay, so how was the project introduced to the people who would use the new technology? What did you do to gain their support for its use?
Yeah, so adoption was also one of the main challenges that we identified ahead of time. And we said, like, what are the things that we could do to help employees adopt this? Because everyone is really busy doing their work. How are they going to take time in looking at this new data, or how are they even going to find out about this? Because we're a huge organization, about 10,000 employees. So how are we going to reach out to every one of these people? So we did identify this, and then to solve this, we started looking at these big tech companies. Like they bring change every time. Like we get a new phone every year. So like, how do these big tech companies um, maintain and manage their technology adoption right? So what we learned from that is they use early adopters approach, where the motivated people and the people who wants to do things differently, they target them so that they adopt that technology ahead of time, and then they become your advocate for your technology. Um, so we did kind of similar. We use similar kind of approach, and what in our case, what we did was the employees who wants to do things differently, who are motivated to do better than their peers and their colleagues, we targeted them first. So, for example, in my opinion, one of the characteristic of motivated employee who are different from others and want to do things differently and want to stay in the loop, they always check the homepage of our intranet, right? And then they always stay up to date with the company news. Um, so first we did the article on our homepage where we said, hey, this virtual power plant is available for you to view. What do you think? Like, are you can access it using these instructions, like log in and here's a link, right? So then we got some feedback from them and we saw that, okay, they were adopting it and they wanted to see even more areas of other power plants. So then we said, okay, they need a link to request the services, because once we have the data, there were, as I said, like there are more applications that we can do with that data. So we also enable a link on the intranet where people can go and request services. The second thing we did was all company email, like a company-wide email with the article link that says, here's a link to access and this is how you access. And then the third technique we used was to update the governance so that the people who are following, like who are really good at their job and following procedures and governance, they remember to use this technology. And the fourth technique that we did was lunch and learn sessions with the groups where we did not see adoption. We went and did like lunch and learn sessions with them to show them how it looks like and how they can use it to their advantage.
So, Jaydev, were there new working practices that the technology required? And if so, how were these developed and introduced?
Yeah, so as you can expect, there are numerous procedures and guidelines our to our daily work life to standardize the work we do. In so and we had to find a governance that is suited for the technology. It also has to get used frequently, and many stakeholders should be included in using that governance. So it was it took time, but we found a governance that was similar to this. So one of the example for this is our modification guide, where we do any kind of changes to our system structure or components within the station itself. Um, so we updated this guide to include reminders for users at every stage of modification lifecycle so that they can use these 3D, 4D technologies. So this is like, this is aimed for the end users. So let's go into a little bit, let's go into the guide that we created for the Center of Excellence, which provides the data collection services, you know, like the team that I talked earlier. So as soon as we got the new device from our vendor and the softwares are installed, we started experimenting and figured out how we will make this technology work. So then it was time for us to document it. And the reason for that is if if it is documented on how we do things, as I mentioned, that produces a standardized product. And if some employee were to leave or go on a rotation job or anything like that, we can always use that procedure as backup to train the new individual. Um, so we also made that guideline, and that guideline talks about how do you plan the job? What questions do you ask the requester, the customer who requested the scanning or any 4D scheduling work? How many scans do you take? Where do you save the data after it gets after you collect it? How do you process and how do you publish the data on the server? And how do you give access to different types of users in the organization? So this is important because, like as I said, like to produce a standard product, and if employees were to go on a different role, we can always use these. And also, we all know that video guides are very useful and they help us learn a lot. So we also made some video guides for users and Center of Excellence. So yeah, these were the changes that we made for the when we introduced the new technology in the company.
Okay, and so what you say certainly makes sense, that new technologies that you introduce, you want to very carefully determine what the working practices will be and document and record those so that they can be transferred from one person to another. And so you have a standard way of doing things to make sure it's always going to be done properly. How
Exactly.
did you decide what those processes would be? So did the people who were working with that technology develop these operating practices themselves, or did you get that from the vendor? How did you decide what those would be?
So some aspect of these procedures were developed in-house. So because vendors provide the technology, but they don't necessarily know our power plants. So we as the Center of Excellence who provides these data collection services, we made it on our own and said, okay, I did this trial and error. And I found out that in 10 by 10 room, for example, we need 4 scans at minimum. And if there are more equipment tags somewhere around the room, then we may need to take a couple of scans more. Stuff like that, right? Like I'm just giving an example, but so to have that aspect on how do you incorporate that into our station system and structure, that is important piece. So that's why we had to make it on our own, and we did utilize some vendor specifications where we take input from, such as what is the density of points that are being collected, what resolution images are being collected, so that we can reduce the number of scans that we take in an area. So yes, it is a combination of both, and majority was developed in-house.
Okay, very important for people who are learning how to do this, how to work with the introduction of technology, that your approach has been a combination of things that you learned from the vendor, but also things that you had to develop for yourself.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
so my next question is around security. So, power generation is very important for uh, the uh, the economy and people's welfare.
Mhm.
And so security is especially important. And without revealing anything that would be beneficial to people who might use it badly, how did
Mhm.
you incorporate the necessary emphasis on security into the project?
Yeah, sure. The cybersecurity and maintaining any company's proprietary data is important piece of this puzzle, right? I'll be able to tell you some basic details. For like cybersecurity is important, and at the same time, democratizing the data is also equally important. Basically, what I mean by that is we can have amazing data of every plant, but if we keep it limited to a few individuals or a few employees, the value is lost, right? So the data has to be democratized and, and, democratized, and in other words, it must be available to every employee based on their roles so that they can use it whenever they want it, right? And whatever the purpose they may have, they can use it. Um, we have our own secured IT infrastructure that we were able to leverage, and in a nutshell, like we had recommended specifications from vendor on what kind of servers we need, and so we utilize that, and we followed the recommended software that were given by us, and then given by vendor, and we deployed them on the server and users' computers. There was also CAD software plugins that allowed us to load 3D scan data directly from the server, um, and this made it easy for us to link Primavera schedule, 3D models, and 3D scans to do interference checks, look for overlap in the work events. Um, so why I'm saying that this is because um, this enabled us to keep the data centralized on the server, and so that there were no individual files floating around in the company. It is all saved on the server, and whenever user needs it, they take it from the server. Um, and and then when they're done using it, once they close the program, it's no longer there anymore, right? So this eliminated the risk of losing data or having multiple copies of the data. Um, and other thing about cybersecurity is, we all know multi-factor authentication is now a standard practice, right? Followed by every or most of the organization, and we also follow that. And yeah, so basically, this summarizes what I can share about the security side of things.
But you were certainly for your organization, security was very important. And that because of that, you incorporated that from the beginning of the project in the way that you did things, and your overall design was incorporated a high degree of security. And I want to really just emphasize that for people watching, of course, security is important to Ontario power generation, but it's also important for most organizations, probably all organizations in what they do.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Okay, my next question is how do you approach your own skills development, Jaydev? Do you ensure that you can conduct projects like this one and stay current in your field? What do you do to make sure your skills keep you able to do these things?
Yeah, I think that having a purpose plays significant role in any skill development or any personal development. Many people can talk about what they do or how they do it, but not many people can talk or tell you why they do it, right? In this particular case, I lived through the difficulties of EPC, the engineering, procure, and construct that I mentioned earlier in my previous life, which gave me a purpose that I want to improve quality of employees' life at work, and also help the new generation, the new younger generation that is joining OPG, and and supercharge their learning curve about about the power plant. Um, so so I think I found an opportunity to serve this purpose and even go beyond this purpose with the digitization of our power plant. Um, and like this enabled us to collaborate efficiently and avoid similar issues I had in my previous role. Um, and this increased the productivity and it also added virtual references in daily activities that we do at work. So basically working for something that we love and care about, and something that we love and care about is it brings passion, um, and with the right purpose, um, it develops the desire to learn new things, and it also drives us to do better things. Um, and um, and I think the next important thing to have beside purpose is vision, um, right? Like vision is basically what is the end goal and what is it that we really want to create in the world around us. And as you can imagine, like we can have fun with this, right? We can dream about anything we want, and the universe is our playground. And you know what they say, like if you see it here, you can hold it here, right? So so I think having vision is very important, and and also the vision goes with like the questions such as uh, are we like are we I mean are we doing the right thing, right? Like does the world need what we are about to envision? Oh, hold on, light went up. Okay, sorry. Yeah, yeah. So there, what I was saying is, okay. So there are some good questions that I think are important about vision, such as does the vision align with what the world needs and may need in the future, right? Does it significantly impact people's life in a good way, or and with this vision, are we going to help people, right? Um, so and after like purpose and vision, I think it is important to have a strategy, and strategy is basically how we're going to do things to bring that vision to life, right? Strategy is something where you leverage everything and everyone around you to build a plan, with an, of course, with an end date in mind. And I think helping people all around you and asking for help when you need from people around you will take us further in future, right? So I think if you have purpose, vision, and strategy, the rest will fall in place, like such as like building skills or staying up to date with the world where it's going, right? So I think just finding that purpose and drive within you are the most important skills, I would say.
Thank you. And do you have any further advice for engineers who will be watching this? This is my last question, and I'm just keen to capture any final points that you might have.
Yeah, I think right now is the best time to be alive as an engineer, right? And and I also thought the same thing back in 2011 when I was doing bachelor's. So yeah, I think engineering is about creating things that never existed, right? So um, so I think engineers will thrive and create better future for humans as they have been doing in the past. Um, One thing that engineers should know is that like great design is critical, but taking that great design and producing at large scale and having supply chain in place and maintaining to support the production are even more complex and requires hardcore engineering. Um, I think as humans, our goal should be to produce like more product than we consume, so that we help the future generations, right? And I think the world is moving towards clean energy, right? So that alone is creating tremendous opportunities for engineers. And if you see, like in our case, the end product is electrons, right? Like we produce them from like hydro dams, solar farms, nuclear fission, biomass, and natural gas. As you know, everyone uses electricity, right? And in future, we're going to see the usage of electricity going. Um, Future, the electricity is going to grow like at a fast scale. Um, and the reason for that is the adoption of electric vehicles that is happening currently. And in Ontario, I think in Ontario we're not perfect, but I think we are doing better than the rest of the world. So I think we should be proud of that, and we are transitioning on how the electricity is produced, and nuclear energy is the central part of that transition. And you may already know this, but we recently announced development of new small modular reactor SMR close to the Darlington Nuclear Generating Station, right? This facility is going to add more clean energy onto the Ontario's grid in future. So what I think is like nuclear has been around for a long time, and we have the opportunity to reinvent this using the small modular reactors, um, and because they can be used to provide clean energy in remote areas, right? So all of these, how are these going? How is this going to happen, right? So we need help of engineers, basically. That's what I'm saying. So we can basically we can either be consumer of the electricity, or we can contribute to the production of clean electricity, right? Um, Clean energy is essential for progress of humankind, and it is better for keeping the environment clean for future generations, right? And in I think in addition to clean energy, there are way more other and way more other areas where engineering is progressing at at a super fast pace, right? Such as space exploration, and where we are trying to preserve the light of human consciousness and becoming spacefaring civilization. And then there is genetic engineering, where we're trying to overcome diseases. And I think there's also efforts made on to 3D transportation network to ease the traffic on the road. Um, and there is also engineering with the brain that is happening, so that we can help people with the spinal cord injuries. And obviously the artificial intelligence and robots that is going to drive the next industrial revolution. As I said, engineers have been and will thrive in future, and always, and we should always remember the human side of things, right? Human we should remember human side of things while doing anything as an engineer, and always serve the purpose of always serve the purpose of achieving better future for humans, and have passion and desire to learn and grow. I think engineers are the way to go for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Jaydev, and I really appreciate you taking the time to answer my questions. I think it will be very valuable for the people who are watching.
I'm very happy to help and very happy to be here. And thank you for involving me.